A single coin, dropped into an empty jar, makes a sound louder than you'd expect. That's because there's nothing else in there to absorb it. Most people think their first $1,000 is the least important milestone in their financial life. A rounding error. Something to rush past on the way to the number that actually matters. Section 1, $0. At zero, a person doesn't have a financial life. They have a financial reaction. Every unexpected cost, a flat tire, a medical bill, a broken phone, doesn't get evaluated. It gets survived. There's no decision-making at zero. There's only triage. Researchers who study financial stress have noticed something strange. The anxiety of having no cushion doesn't behave like ordinary worry. It behaves like a low-grade physical threat. The same neural circuitry that once watched for predators now watches a checking account balance. The data cannot fully explain why a number on a screen can trigger a response built for the wilderness. But it does. At zero, money isn't a tool. It's a wound that hasn't closed. Section 2, $1,000. Most people believe the first $1,000 won't change anything. That it's too small to matter. That belief is wrong. And the way it's wrong reveals something deeper about how the human mind responds to safety. The first $1,000 doesn't fix a life. What it does is stop the bleeding. A blown tire stops being a crisis and becomes an inconvenience. A dead phone stops being a 5-alarm emergency and becomes a Tuesday. Something shifts internally the moment this happens. Not because the number is large, but because the threat assessment changes. The brain stops scanning for danger in every small expense. For the first time, a person isn't just reacting to money. They're beginning, quietly, to make decisions about it. This is the stage nobody celebrates. And it might be the most important one of all. Section 3, $10,000. At $10,000, something happens that has nothing to do with the money itself. Time enters the picture. Below this stage, almost every financial decision is immediate. Pay this, cover that, survive this week. But at $10,000, a person can, for the first time, ask a question that requires patience. What happens if I wait? This is the moment an emergency fund stops being aspirational and becomes real. A job loss stops being a catastrophe and becomes a window. Psychologists who study decision-making under scarcity have found something unsettling. People with no financial slack don't just have less money. They have measurably less capacity for long-term thinking, not because they're less capable, but because scarcity itself consumes mental bandwidth that would otherwise go toward planning. $10,000 doesn't just sit in an account. It returns something that was quietly taken away at zero. Section 4, $100,000. Most people assume the difference between $10,000 and $100,000 is simply more of the same stress, the same discipline, just multiplied. That's not what happens either. Somewhere near this stage, a strange reversal occurs. Growth on paper begins to rival, and eventually exceed, the growth a person creates through their own labor. A portfolio, sitting quietly, invisible, begins doing in a single strong year what months of a person's own work once did. There's a phrase for this moment, quiet and almost mathematical. The machine starts pulling its own weight. A person doesn't notice the shift until they check a balance one ordinary afternoon and realize the number moved more than their paycheck did that month, and they didn't do anything to cause it. This is the point where money stops being something a person only earns, and starts being something that, quietly, works for them, whether they're watching or not. Zoom out, and these 4 stages stop looking like a savings account growing. They start looking like something closer to a nervous system slowly relaxing. At 1,000, relief. At 10,000, time. At 100,000, leverage. None of these stages are really about the money. They're about what the money quietly takes off a person's shoulders, one invisible weight at a time. Most people chase the number. Fewer people notice what the number is actually buying back. The jar with one coin in it isn't empty anymore. But the silence it used to hold, the sound of nothing to fall back on, that's the part most people spend their entire lives trying to forget they ever heard.